Hi, in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to replace and maintain the hydraulic disc brakes for your mountain bike. So I've got a lot of things that could be worked on for this mountain bike. The front brake has probably some air in the line because when I was mountain biking it started getting warm. I was able to pull the lever all the way to the bar and I had to pump it a few times just to start braking again. Also, the front rotor is worn. It's 1.5 millimeters and Shimano says 2 millimeters brand new, 1.5. It's time to replace. And also the brake pads are worn, so that's another thing I need to replace. Let's go over some of the tools and equipment I'll use. I have Allen wrenches, a hydraulic brake piston press here, Torx wrench, T25s right here, little spacer for the disc brakes, some pliers, disc brake pads, disc brake rotor that's compatible. So if you have a center lock, you get a center lock. In this case it's 6 bolts, so I have a 6-bolt disc rotor. I have a bleed kit, some mineral oil that's compatible with the Shimano, and of course a bike to work on. And notice these are the bolts, so it's a 6-bolt disc rotor that I'll be replacing today. Okay, the first thing I'm gonna do is loosen the Allen screws here, back here, and make this more level. So now you can see this bleed port here is almost at the very top. So if there's any air bubbles that'll come out of that port right here. It's at the very top of the hydraulic system, and the reservoir is underneath here. This is the back side of the disc brake caliper, and you have to remove this right here. So you pull that out with some pliers. Then there is a flathead screw right here to undo this bolt holding the disc brake pads inside the caliper. So this should be pretty simple. You just kind of move this up and grab it with your pliers and just pull it right on out like that. On the left side of the disc brake caliper is the flathead screw right there. Here's a close-up of the flathead screwdriver that you want to undo. So just go ahead, put your screwdriver in here and loosen up this little bolt and take it all the way out. After we go ahead and pull this one out, these disc brake pads should be able to come slide out from the back here. And I'll show you how worn they are in a second here. As you can tell, on the left sides are the completely worn ones right here, and this is a brand new pad that's going to be going in. These replacement pads are J04C, and they are for ICE technology disc brake rotors. You can probably tell that these are compatible with the ICE tech right here that says for the Shimano disc rotors. So next thing is we have to see if we could push these pistons back in. As you can tell, these pistons have been pushed inward due to all the braking and the worn pads. So this is what we use our brake piston press for. So I'm going to use this brake piston press here, and you put it inside, and we're going to try to press back and forth to push the pistons back in to the disc brake calipers. When you're finished, the piston should be almost flush with the calipers here. I like to always clean it out a little bit. The best I can is get a little cloth in here and clean out the piston and the pads and the whole brake caliper in here the best I can. And as you can see, it's real dirty in there. You could also use the piston press, put a kind of towel or rag over it and go in and out and go ahead and clean the pistons this way as well. After cleaning, you can notice that the pistons are actually white color. I went ahead and put the old brake pad just in. As you saw me take it out, I squeezed them and slid it back in. Put the screw on very lightly so I could go ahead and add this, which is a thinner version of the block, between the used brake pads. So the brake pad's right there, and I'll go ahead and slide this pad right in and push it all the way in. So I went ahead and put it in and put some tape underneath. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Shimano bleed kit. This is the contents that was inside the box. And what do you know, there's disc brake pad blocks that go between, so I don't need the other one. I could use these. But you know, time to take the disc brake pads back out and put a block in there. Since I didn't show you earlier, taking out the pads were like this, and putting them back in was as simple as like that, and putting the screw back in. So I found the size here that fits in. I could put it in from the front and slide it in so it fits in like this. However, it kind of falls back out if I let go. It does have the little hole here on the back, so I'm going to go ahead with this and put my old screw back in and screw it in just a little bit so it won't go in anywhere. We have 2 plungers here and 2 containers, and they are differentiated by the threads here. This thread's a little thinner than this one on the left here, and they have little stands. There's also this syringe here that I had a screw on here, and this side it has a real fine point tip that you use to the end of this brake caliper. So on the bottom to the right here, you could see right here, that's where the syringe is going to enter, the very tip right there. Back to the handlebar, this right here is an Allen key, a 2.5 millimeter, so go ahead and loosen that and remove that. After you remove it here, go ahead and thread this smaller one with the smaller threads onto the top of your brake, and there is a little O-ring there, so you're just going to go ahead and attach it like that. Now I want to go ahead and fill up the syringe with your mineral oil, suck it all the way out, and I'm not sure how much I'm going to get, maybe 50, 60, 80 mils, and or maybe even fill it all the way up. So this bolt here on the bottom is a 7 millimeter hex. That's the only part that I could use automotive type wrenches. So I fill this whole thing up with mineral oil here, and then there's a lot of air here, so you're going to push the plunger to get rid of all of the air and empty it back into the container if you like. So after that, I went ahead and got this and squeezed it on into here and over. Then what you're going to do is use a wrench. If you had a 7 millimeter, it would be great to go ahead, loosen this, and when you loosen it, you can go ahead and start pushing the fluid all the way up. So go ahead, loosen this. It's nice and loose here. Let's see if I can push the fluid and start pushing it all the way up. And notice some of these bubbles are coming up as we do this, as I push the fluid up. As I push the fluid in, notice that there's some more dirty fluid coming out. And I keep pushing most of the fluid through the system here. So I went ahead, tightened up the caliper bolt below with a 7 millimeter, and now that there's liquid up here, I'm going to go ahead and press this quite a few times and see if I could get any of the bubbles from here out and into the liquid jar here. I'm going to go ahead and move it down a little bit, make sure you don't get any air there, and compress it a few times and see if any of the air bubbles here will come out. And also when I move it upwards here, make sure again that this liquid level stays above here. And I'll hold this and I'll press it a few times here to see if any more bubbles come out. And I'll put it back in the neutral position here. Use your 4 millimeter or whatever the screw is, Allen screw, to tighten it up. Now go ahead, take this plunger here, stick it in here, so when you unscrew this, it doesn't go all over the place. And then you're going to go ahead and make sure you still have the washer on the inside of this screw cover here to put it back over the top. So roll gently and slowly take out this one. It's full of mineral oil there, and go ahead and place this one Screw it right back on, and you'll see a little bit of liquid coming out because these threads take up the space of some of the fluid that was in there, and make sure it's quite snug. Already I'm quite impressed. Before it was going all the way down to the handlebar. Now it's actually quite firm. If you want to go ahead and change out your rotors, you're welcome to do that as well. So I'm using the T25 Torx wrench, and here it indicates so. There's a T25 and they work perfectly for these bolts here, and they might be quite tight because they might have blue Loctite. Just go ahead and unscrew all of these 6 Torx bolts. After you remove all the bolts here, go ahead and take the rotor off and get the new one for replacement. The new one comes with the rotor, and it looks like it also comes with some bolts that have some probably thread sealer already, green thread sealer built in, along with possibly some spacers there as well. Notice that this rotor here kind of goes on only one direction, and see there's like an indentation here. And also note the direction of rotation right here. So if you're on the left side with a bike, the wheels are going this way, so that's the direction of rotation here. Now that the rotor's off, it's actually a great time to go ahead and clean around the rotors and the hub, because you hardly get back in here, to make it nice and clean. And this is optional, but I like to clean it out quite a bit. So I just go ahead and thread on these bolts just real lightly with hand, just so I make sure that I don't cross thread them. And I'll go ahead and put all these on just lightly first. These are the new ones. See how there's like some green Loctite on it. And to tighten these bolts, I'll tighten, let's say, this side first, and then I'll go to the opposite, and I'll tighten this one, then this one, this one, this one, and kind of do a cross pattern there. And then when you're all done, go ahead, give it a nice check again. Tighten this one, this one, this one, this one. Oh, that one, and then this one. We could just go ahead, unscrew this here, and remove the block. Now, after you remove the block, be sure not to touch the brake calipers at all, because once you start squeezing them in, these pistons are going to go right back in. You want to go ahead and take a look at your brake pads here. This L is for the left side. It's also labeled on this spring clip here, and on the other side here, take a look, and this is for the right side, so don't get them confused or mixed up. There's the right side there. The retaining clip here, or the spring, also says R for right side there. I'm going to go ahead like this, squeeze them together, and just go ahead and slide them right in. I'm going to go ahead and put this bolt right back in, and if it doesn't work, you're going to have to move it a little bit with the screwdriver until you could get it in there. So now it went through, and go ahead and screw this back in and give it a fairly snug. And then on the end here, don't forget this little clip. Just go ahead and put that clip right on the end. So now I can take the bike off the front stand here and put the front wheel back on. Pull it off and make sure don't squeeze this brake right here. I'm going to slide the wheel through here and make sure the rotor slides into the nice brand new disc rotor, and go ahead and install the through axle if applicable, and give it a spin, and look at that, brand new rotor. Didn't have to adjust the brake caliper. If you did have to adjust the caliper, you're going to squeeze it, hold it, loosen these bolts, and then retighten them. Also, don't forget to readjust your brake lever height and angle, so you can move it down if you like, or up or however you're more comfortable with this brake lever, then go ahead and make sure to retighten it in the position that you like. It's the next day now, and I went for a ride and the front brake was perfect. I went down this descent and it was long and I didn't have any brake fade whatsoever, so that one worked out. Now for the rear brake, I have to set the bike like this, so the port where I'm going to inject the mineral oil for the Shimano system is at the lowest point here. To look at how little mineral oil I used for the front brake. My guess is maybe 30 milliliters or maybe an ounce. So the rear brake is going to be largely the same as replacing the rotor and flushing the fluid or rebleeding it and changing the pads as the front. However, I will show you a few things that I may have missed the first time going around for the front brake. This bike came equipped with this flathead screwdriver bolt here with a stopper on the back side. So here's a stopper retaining clip that clips to the end right there, but this is what's included with the disc brake pads, and you don't get another screw, bolt, or this retaining stopper clip that clips onto the end there. So I'll show you how to use this if you want to use this instead. So if you want to use this clip instead of the screw, you go ahead and just insert it inside here like that, and it stops on this side. Or if you want to, you could even put it in from the back side here and see how it's sticking out here. Now you take a pliers, pull one side this direction, and then when this other side is exposed here, pull it out the other way to lock it in place. When the brake pads are out, I went ahead and really cleaned up the caliper and polished it because there's more room to work with when the brake pads are out. And I also cleaned the inside there. Make sure you put the block in, and I use this thing to go ahead and hold the block in place, otherwise it'll just fall right out. So this is the port right here, and I use a 7mm right here, and then you can use that to loosen it. And also underneath, place something in case it starts leaking, and then you just go ahead, and it might be initially pretty tight, and when it gets loose enough before it starts leaking, see it's leaking there, go ahead and give it a little, not snug, but enough tight that it stops leaking. That way you could switch to a crescent wrench. See how this one fits right here? Now I could go ahead, get ready to bleed it, loosen it, and then start adding the fluid, but you have to put the syringe end in here. So I have this syringe full of liquid, and there's a tip here, and then I have to push the syringe here to remove some of this liquid so there's no air. So right now there's no air, so I'm going to push it a little bit until the liquid starts coming out and there's no air. And now I go ahead and attach it like this and snap it in just like that. As you can see, there may be a few air bubbles, but I'm going to push it through. That needs to get pushed through the whole system, or I could pull it out. I'll probably just pull this out, bleed out a little more mineral oil until these little bubbles are gone, and then put it right back in. Let the bubbles kind of gone, go ahead and use this wrench and loosen it, and you may have to turn this hose with it. As we loosen it, it opens up, and then you can go ahead and push the fluid all the way through, and it should be coming out the top. So this fluid here is actually really dirty, so it needed to be flushed. There, this is what it looks like after, and there's fresh fluid kind of on the bottom here if you look closely. Make sure you tighten this while there's still fluid inside the syringe, and we'll make sure this block is still in place. And then just tap this several times just to make sure that the fluid is pumped down and into the rear brake lever. You could also move this up and down a little bit and try to pump the fluid back into the line. When you take the plunger off, you notice how clean the liquid is there. And you see it's kind of a bright red color there, so you know it's clean fluid coming out and it's not that brown, dirtier fluid. When you're finished, make sure all the bolts are tightened up, especially on the disc rotor. and that you put back if you have the cap on the bleed port there. Hope this video helped you learn how to replace the disc brake rotors, bleed, and flush out the old hydraulic mineral oil fluid for your Shimano hydraulic disc brakes. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and you can always hit that subscribe button. It is absolutely free, and thank you so much for watching.